Good afternoon.
Hello.
Do you pronounce match?
Yep.
Okay.
What you use to light a fire. I'm giving
I
this...
thought that's what it might have been, but I wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
Make sure I heard correctly. Okay. Welcome. And what did you want us to know today?
Yeah, so I'm giving this statement on behalf of a very dear and trusted friend who was a 19-year-old protest medic who responded to the scene immediately, and not only that, but also helped mitigate a very, frankly, terrifying police response in that moment as well. So, without further ado, first, I want to acknowledge that I would like to be up here reading this statement myself, but I am not, and as you can see, I have someone in my place. I cannot give this statement myself because we live in a world where fascists, and I do not use that term loosely or lightly, encourage and engage in violence against Black lives, trans lives, disabled lives, and all others that are marginalized by systemic oppression. They also attack those that stand in solidarity with and defend marginalized groups. These fascists are precisely the people who wanted shootings like Normandale, Kenosha, Atlanta, Austin, and car attacks like in Seattle, Charlottesville, and so many more. Even in the month between Smith's plea hearing and today, another car attack has occurred in Reno, killing one. In many of these attacks, the perpetrators were led to specific groups or individuals after such people were singled out online by self-proclaimed journalists or other fascist sympathizers. Targeting a march that was honoring Patrick Kimmons, Amir Locke, Daunte Wright was an intentional act. The mass shooting that occurred at Normandale Park was not an accident. None of these assaults and murders were accidents. And as much as it pains me to say, they will continue to happen. I know that many of the victims in the attacks listed above wake up on the anniversaries of what was probably the worst day of their lives, and they lay in bed a little longer than usual, plagued by sights and sounds that haunt their nightmares and their daydreams. I know that every month on the 19th since Benjamin Smith shot 5 of my friends, I have woken up and laid in bed longer than usual. I hear the gunshots, remember counting to 10 or 11. I remember thinking that I might turn the corner and see 10 or 11 people bleeding out on the ground. And I remember in the most twisted, awful way being somehow relieved that there weren't more than 5. 6 if you count him. I still can't make it through the day without spending at least a few minutes feeling frozen in time, anxious that someone near me is suddenly going to pull out a gun and start shooting, thinking what I'll do when the police get there and point their guns at us, just like they did at Normandale, thinking about how many people there will be to treat and whether or not I'll have enough hands, let alone medical supplies, to keep them alive for over 20 minutes while I wait for police to arbitrarily decide the scene is safe enough for EMS to enter, just like they did at Normandale. But don't worry, EMS won't be on scene until after the police have threatened to arrest people administering aid, doing CPR, and saving Benjamin Smith's life. Unlike Smith and so many other fascist white supremacists, I don't see myself fit to decide who lives or who dies. The results of his decision, his attempt at murdering 5 people by cosplaying God that night, those are things that I live with every day, every moment. In the 9 seconds it took him to murder T-Rex and wound 4 others, he guaranteed innumerable more people a lifetime of flashbacks and nightmares, lost relationships, and fear. He grants us all a membership to a club we never asked to be a part of and can never leave. This lifetime membership has left me feeling more suffocated than ever before. Do you know how hard it is to find movies, books, or TV shows that don't include gun violence? Even The Nightmare Before Christmas has a shooting scene. We are almost exactly 14 months past Normandale, and I still don't know what healing looks like, because at every turn I see news stories and media filled with the horror my friends and I had to live. Please make no mistake, this is not me advocating for gun control, because a firearm, one of those big, scary assault rifles with a high-capacity magazine, was the only reason I turn that corner and see more of my friends on the ground. I think about Normandale every day, about the violence Smith enacted and the complete yet unsurprising failure of the state to stop him. I think about the 3 thankfully unused magazines tucked into his waistband, the terrified screams for a medic, how helpless I felt looking at T-Rex, the fear in my friends' voices, How unafraid I felt staring down the barrel of 4 police rifles while I begged to go back to treating my dying friends. The way that Smith apologized, as though that would somehow make what he did okay. Everyone asking me what to do and how to help. The way the blood looked on my hands that were held high to prove to the police that I didn't have a weapon. And how angry I was at the police officer that dared tell me it was a homicide investigation as though I didn't know that 20 minutes before he did. About how cops grabbed me and threatened to arrest me just for administering aid. I think about the friend that took my hand and walked me away from the carnage when I felt like keeling over and vomiting from incomprehensible horror and shock. I think about how, after I left that street corner, I had to tell Kat that her wife was dead because PPB and the medical examiner refused to talk to her. And I so vividly recall spending 10 minutes scrubbing the then dried blood from 5 of my friends, off my knees, wrists, shins, and shoes, standing in a friend's kitchen in nothing but a tank top and yellow underwear, feeling surprisingly calm considering the atrocity that had just occurred. Hours after it was over, I sat down and thought about how my life changed forever in ways that I didn't yet know and in ways that I still do not fully understand. After all that Ben Smith has taken from my community and from my friends and from me, you might think that I want the worst for him to rot in jail until he's wasted away into a shell of the human being that he once was. I don't. I brought up the fact that Smith apologized while he was being treated because I want to illustrate that he is ultimately a product of this fascist state. Smith had the autonomy and made the choice to load those magazines and pull the trigger, but he was not born believing that committing a mass shooting was a solution. He was taught it. As of now, our current system finds justice in using my tax dollars to keep this man alive. It finds satisfaction in punitive systems that do nothing to prevent something like this from happening again. I disagreed with this idea of justice long before this, and that has not changed in light of Smith's choices. No good comes from this policing system, this prison system, or this courtroom. All that comes from them is pain, more trauma, and a distinct lack of justice. These systems have and continue to demonstrate their inability to stop this violence. While I wish I could describe to you exactly what justice would look like here, I can't. All I can do is throw out some ideas. We need to address the root causes of this violence. We need to stop criminalizing poverty and mental illness. We need to educate others on how to dismantle white supremacy, ableism, and misogyny, and cultivate a genuine community that can imagine what justice looks like beyond punitive systems. I want to make something very clear. Community defense stopped Benjamin Smith, not the police. The community medics, myself, and people that I trained kept people alive for well over 20 minutes before EMS was allowed on scene. Community defense was the reason that more people are not dead at the hands of Ben Smith. Real community is key to this. Ultimately, no state authority can fix what happened, and Smith dying doesn't either. This statement cannot possibly encapsulate everything that happened at Normandale and in the years since, nor adequately summarize my feelings on complicated topics such as police and prison abolition, what justice could look like, or community defense and radical care. So I will end with this. In the words of a famous member of the Black Panther Party, Angela Davis, abolition is not primarily a negative strategy. It's not primarily about dismantling or getting rid of, but it's about re-envisioning. It's about building anew. I want to build anew. I want to build a world where this doesn't ever happen again. I want to build a world where there are no more people like T-Rex, or Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Huber, George Guita, Garrett Foster, Summer Taylor, Heather Hare, or Shelley Jardine Blair. To all of my friends, comrades, and community members that continue to fight for the lives of the marginalized and against the fascist state, just as I told my friends on the night of February 19th, 2022, I love you and I've got you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts today. I wanted to follow up with you just real quick. You talked about that odd calm, right? When you're standing there in that room, the oddest feeling in the world, right?
I can't speak to it myself. I'm only repeating the statement on behalf of a friend.
Yeah.
And I appreciate my friends granting me the trust to be here today and share their statement for them.
Yeah, and then your friend talked about so true with books and movies, how we don't see them without guns and violence. But you know what? There are two out right now that are sort of in the mainstream market that don't have I saw one of them, and it was a very odd thing to sit through a whole movie and not have any of that, and it was very refreshing. So at least we have some hope, right? But that statement, that resonated there, because that's absolutely correct. We do need to keep taking a look at that and asking ourselves why. So thank you for coming today.
Yeah.
And Mr. Vasquez, who else were we going to hear from today?
I believe we have one, maybe two. I'm going to check right now.
Okay. Hi, and you consider, Stan, whichever you're most comfortable with. What did you want us to know today?